Hi, I'm Cynda with Choice Medical Group's Senior Kicks Club. We're going to be doing our painting today during our crafting section. The painting we're doing today is going to be this 4-leaf clover with the ladybug. Very simple project. All we're going to need today is some paints. The colors normally that we would use for this will be a couple of greens, some white, the red and the black, and obviously your gold for your background. We've already laid mine out. You're going to need your brushes. For some of you, as I have some difficulty with, sometimes outlining things in black, I like to use a marker. Obviously, you're going to have your water and things like that all ready for you, and your chalk. One of the announcements that I'd like to make today is that this is going to be one of the last few online classes that is strictly online. We are going to be coming back to our in-class classes here at our new Senior Kicks Club Lounge here up at the 18564 Highway 18. That's going to be our new Senior Kicks Club Lounge. I'm very excited. We're going to be able to start doing some of our crafts and exercise classes in person starting this May. So get a hold of me and I'll give you all the details that you need. And now let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is take our canvas and start painting the gold background. Different ones of you will have different kinds of gold paints. Some are thinner and will require more layers. Some will find that the paint they have is thick enough to get away with one. It also depends on the look that you want. If you don't want it to be very thick, you don't have to. You can have it be a more streaky look, and that's absolutely something that's up to you. Now, because you can see in the metallic, it shows the directions of your lines, and that you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to how you want your painting to look. Do you mind it being streaky? And that, if so, is there a direction that you prefer it to go? So we'll get this just as much as we can on here. Now, for some of you, you're going to find that you don't have enough, or you don't want to put it on very thick just because of the drying process. And if you find that's the case, you don't need to paint the whole thing. Just make sure that you paint sufficient amount that when you do draw your 4-leaf clover, and that the entire clover covers that area that you did not paint in gold. So if you leave the center, and that's not a problem. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and paint mine because depending on how I do draw my 4-leaf clover, there will be a small section in the center that may have some little areas that show through to the background. I just want to make sure for myself that I've got all those areas covered. So go ahead and take that time and get that background done. Okay, so you can use your hair dryer to dry this. Some of you are going to find that your paint dries faster than others. Just so that we can go ahead and get started, I'm going to let you know. I draw my kind of beginning pieces out a little bit with a piece of chalk. If this is still too wet, that chalk will remain on there. However, if it's dry, you can easily erase it with anything that you go over with just a wet paintbrush, or you can paint right over the top of it. Again, this is just children's chalk. So we're going to start with our little 4 leaves here, and what I want to do is I want to give it a center line. And then I'm going to get the other side of this. And then this piece down here was going to be where I'm going to put my stem. To make your 4-leaf clover, we're going to turn this into a heart on each one. And as you can tell, my paint is very, very much still wet. So as you can tell, mine is really not very dry, and it's actually digging into the paint with my chalk. I'm not going to worry about it because I'm still going to be painting over this. So I'm going to get my hearts off those little lines that I made. And I don't like this one, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And remember, these are just guidelines. This is not your exact pattern. Don't like the way that came out. I'm going to make it a little larger. Again, just guidelines. So now that I have it roughed out approximately where I like it, I'm going to get myself a stem down in here. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start working with my green paint as soon as this is just a tad bit drier. So we're going to start filling in the dark green part of our clover. Again, remember those lines that you drew are guidelines. They're better made smaller than larger. Get all that green in there. Now you notice that sometimes this green's a little on the thick side in some ways, thin sides in others, and that it's thin in that it doesn't have the coverage that some of the nicer, heavier paints have. This is not a high quality paint. I try to use things that I know everybody can have access to, and not everybody can afford the higher quality paints. So I try to do these for you with things that are more affordable. But it means that we have to deal with some of the problems that also brings. I'm very excited that we're going to be able to get back together in person again soon. We're going to be able to still allow for social distancing. We will still ask you to wear your masks. But we will get to be together again. Now some of you did go ahead and get a higher quality paint, and so yours is going to have a little better coverage for you. And then I'm trying to get mine to have some thickness around the edge that I want first, and then pull it down into the center. Some of you are more professional painters, and you'll have a different way of doing things completely. The project is just to keep us doing things together and be able to enjoy ourselves. You're always going to put your own spin on it. Some of you may even decide you don't like gold for the background. You may want to do yours in silver. I did mine in gold as representative of the gold coins at the pots at the end of the rainbow is supposed to have in it. And that was why I chose gold. If you like silver, use silver. If you want to make yours completely different, just a sky color or something, that's fine. Now some of you are noticing that my stroke movements are a little different than they normally are, or that I seem to be painting more slowly and carefully, and that I had a little work done on my wrists on a surgery that I had. You probably noticed the little bandage. More importantly, it's to let you know that some of us may have arthritis in our hands, some of us may have just had surgery on our hands, some of us are going to just be working at a slower pace, and it's all right. You work with what you are able to work with. The most important thing is doing something that you're enjoying. Every once in a while I'll be making a movement, and that movement isn't particularly liked by my hand. And so I will change the angle of my hand. Again, we all have things that we deal with, and we just want to have fun together despite those things. I'm enjoying being able to be back with you guys again. Again, these are not normal movements that I would make, but they're getting the job done. I'm going to move this around just a little bit. Remember, you can always change the angle of things if it makes it easier on you. Now, my hand said it doesn't like doing that backwards motion over there. Simple project as it is, you can take your time doing it. You can do it really quickly. My hand, particularly today, would like to just keep certain movements. And it doesn't want to do the backwards ones, so we're going to keep moving things around so that that can be done. Let's accommodate your needs too. You have a little arthritis in a hand. Stop, move things around, make things more comfortable for yourself, because we want to be enjoying ourselves. I think I want this to be a little bit wider, so as you can tell, even though my sketch lines are out here, or in here, I'm going to move this out just a little bit. Remember, these are your guidelines. If you've made one that you want to change it up, make it a little larger, it's absolutely all right. If you go around and you decide, oh my goodness, I think I've made that too small on one, too large on another, change it up. You can always go larger though. If you've made it too small, you're probably going to have to make your other ones a little larger.
You have 10 minutes.
Okay, at this point you're going to take a look, see where you want to make things a little larger, a little smaller. If you don't like the angle of something, I want to put a little bit of more on this side, this leaf, and bring it down just a little closer in. I want to make the top here just a little less heart-shaped. This one I'm going to make just a tad wider. So this is where you're going to make all the little corrections that you like on the shapes, now that you've seen where you finished up with each one. And then you're going to take your hair dryer and you're going to get your piece dried. Oops. Cover up your little imperfections here and there. And we'll wait till you're dry and we'll start the next section of colors. So as we did, some of this will be dried, some of it's not going to be, so we're going to be real careful. We're going to go to our second step, which is the heart shapes that are within this. And then I'm going to start putting a little color down here. And I'm not too worried about if this kind of has a smear to it from it not being perfectly dry. What's more important to me is that I just have a different color green, and I want to make my little heart shape in here. Now again, as we did with the chalk before, you can draw this in. For me, I'm just going to kind of dab some colors down in here and get a rough outline of the heart shape that I want. And I'm going to move this around a little bit, see if I can help get my shape a little differently. If you want to take it up higher into the leaf, that's fine too. I think I'm going to keep mine a little bit on the lower side. And my hand does not want to do certain angles today, so I'm going to take my time trying to get my pattern down. Now some of you may not have a second color green. That's okay too. Remember, you can always take your green, add a little white or a little yellow to it and tone it down into a color that you like a little better. I'm going to pull this up. You can see I got a little bit of that darker green that wasn't perfectly dry underneath, and it's pulling up. It's kind of making a nice little swirl in the centerpiece here. You can add the smears. If you let it get very dry and it's nice and that, you won't have any of these little smeared colors at all. I've kind of left mine because I wanted it to just to kind of add some dimension to this. I want you to continue all the way around on your clover and do that same exact thing. So let's go ahead and take our time and do that. So now that we've gotten our little green hearts in, we've gotten the darker greens back in, and now one of the things that we're going to add is our little ladybug. And so up at the top here, you're going to take your chalk or whatever you're doing your light drawing with and just kind of do a rough guesstimation of where you want that ladybug to be. And we're going to paint a base about just around the edges in our black ladybug colors. I'm going to put a little bit more black at one end, and the reason I'm going to do that is because that's where the black needs to be thick enough that we can't see through it. As you can see, you can kind of see through this black. It's not very thick, and so I want to put just a little bit extra, and I want his little bum up in the air. So let's see, which way will I make him go? I'm going to have him looking into this. I'm going to add a little bit of shape, but we put his head more down this end, and his little bum up over here is stuck in the air. And while I'm waiting for that to give a little bit dry, as I told you, we're going to outline this in black. And especially with my wrist being the bother that it is today, and some of you, because you have arthritis, and sometimes I'm a little shaky, now I'm going to use my felt tip. Now you can take a very fine brush and take something with a very tiny tip, and you can literally paint your black edge all the way around this. Again, I'm having difficulties today bending my wrist, so I'm going to use the marker because it's going to make it so much easier for me. It's not going to make a difference with regard to the paper or the painting at all. So we're going to start while that little guy's drying, and I'm going to start giving an outline here. You see how much easier that makes that. Apologize for my angles today. I find that today the pulling motion is easier on my hand, and so that's what I'm going to do. If you find you can go both directions, or you have no difficulties with your hands, great. Whatever works easiest for you. Now, if as you're going around, you find that you have put your black mark too far outside, or that you don't like the angle of something, remember that you can draw this as you want. And say if I had come all the way out here on this line for some reason, you can always fill that back in with paint later. So you don't need to go in and worry about, oh my goodness, now I have to make that black line so heavy. Like right there, I just didn't get quite, if I'd had to do too much more, I would have left it and filled that in. Right there, got a little further out than I want. It didn't make it overly thick, to just go ahead and correct it here. It helps you even up any little rough spots that you have in your edging. And if you're a painter, you're saying, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that you're doing that. And as I said, these are for us to enjoy getting together. And we should be doing things that make it easier on us. As I told you, you're perfectly welcome to do it with a paintbrush. And right here I had a little bit. I'm going to go back later and touch that with a little bit of green paint and even that up. So now back up on my little ladybug. It's pretty much dry now. I want to start getting some little ideas of what to do with his legs. I'm going to have him standing on this leaf here. I'm going to do one little leg here. And I'm going to do another little leg. And another little leg. And you can't see the legs on this side because those little legs are hanging on underneath here. I might have one little leg right here, and then he's going to have some little antennae. And make them as fun as you care to. And we're going to go on to our next step, and that's going to be his little red wings. Now, if you want, you can add a little bit of black to your red and get it darker. Let's try it here and see how it looks, because sometimes when you put a color over black, it comes out darker anyway. So we're going to see here. We want his head there. There's our antennae. And we're going to end up doing 2 layers of this because it does show. And at the other end, we're going to have it come in. That's one wing. Two wings with his little bum hanging out. Don't worry if you get a little too close to the edge. You can always fix it up. Remember, different layers, different kinds of paint are going to cause different effects. I'm definitely going to go back in and do a second coat. Because I would like this just a tad bit brighter. Gonna let that first one get just a tiny bit dry. So let's give that a moment to dry and we'll come back again. So now we're gonna finish up with our second coat of the red on our ladybug. That way it's a little bit brighter. Now, yours may look different than mine, and I'm fighting with lights on mine, so sometimes I don't see all the little spots, but we've got the idea here. So there we have a ladybug's got nice red color to her. The next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our little black dots. And I've used a little bit finer brush for this because I'm just going to make little blobs to make my dots. And I'm going to avoid the very center here because that's where I'm going to put a line that shows exactly where the center of that is. That'll show where our line between our wings are. So again, you just need to dab some little droplets of black here and there. They don't have to be perfectly round. They don't have to have a certain number. Just whatever you'd like. I'm sure the ladybugs themselves don't have perfect symmetry on their spots if we were to go look at them. I may be wrong. I'm just assuming. A little half dot over there. A little half dot there. So now that I have those little dots in, we pretty much have everything done on him except for the little bit of white outline that defines where his wings separate. And you don't have to do that in white if you don't want to. You can do it in any color you'd like. You can even leave it out if you don't want to add it at all. I'm going to see if I can find a little bit thinner brush here, because I just really want just a very tiny white line. I'll dampen it, get my tip good in here. Now remember that red, when when I'm working on it today, it's very wet still. So if you don't want it to smear, you want to make sure that you've gotten it well dried. And that, my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 little white spots up here. Oh, there's little eyes. Trying to get the tip of my brush very fine. Water. Okay, just get the last little bit. Okay, and this is where we're going to go ahead. We're going to sign our work and hang it on the wall. I hope you had fun doing this project. I know I did. And don't forget, May, we're coming back together.